Hello, everybody. I gather that onto the Russian embassy in Washington, there is every so often projected the colours of the Ukrainian flag, and occasionally some rather rude comments in Ukrainian language about Vladimir Putin. The response of the Russians to this is occasionally to produce a huge spotlight that drowns out the Ukrainian flag, or to use umbrellas to stop the projection working, and sometimes to put their own projection of two huge Zs, which is a nationalist symbol of the Russian war effort. And I find myself finding in this tit for tat projection onto the Russian embassy something extremely tragic. It's in itself, it's just said like that sounds silly, but of course it represents the terrible tragedy that is the war in Ukraine, which is itself not just a land grab by President Putin. It's in his view, in the view of that's being portrayed to the Russians, a matter of getting back that which is theirs, of recovering something that was taken away. This tit for tat, this seeking of getting your own back for something that's happened to you, that's reflected in these different kinds of projection onto the Russian embassy, I think is part of the tragedy of what it is to be human, because that's how so many of us behave. If anything is done to us, we want to get our own back. We want revenge. We're not prepared just to sit and take it. And yet we're reminded, those of us who are Christians, of Jesus' words about turning the other cheek. And for all of us, there is the example of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, whose pacifism and whose refused to respond with violence to violence made them, in the case of those two people, very effective in the projects for which they worked. But for most of us, turning the other cheek is an enormously difficult thing to do. Because there is the danger that we'll just be walked all over if we don't stand up for ourselves. And so today I just want to remind ourselves of the challenge, the ideal really, of turning the other cheek, of not responding with tit for tat, not seeking revenge for something that's been done to us. But to try and get as close as we can to achieving that ideal in the way that we respond to people and to events. It's not easy to get it right, and I think most of us would prefer to forget that injunction. But I think as an ideal, it's something worth aiming for, even if we can't always achieve it, because I'm sure if we did, the world would be a much more, if we all did it anyway, the world would be a much more peaceful and harmonious place.